The room had no visible technology, which was the first signal that it was made of nothing but technology. Salvii had designed it this way. The decision had seemed elegant at the time, a verification environment with no seams, no cameras you could point at, no biometric readers whose bezels you could cover with your hand. The system was embedded in the room itself, in the air temperature, the floor's resonance, and the way the lights responded to movement. It read gait patterns, micro-expressions, vocal harmonics, and the particular way a person oriented their body toward uncertain space. It synthesized all of this into an identity vector, compared it against the registry, and, if the comparison returned a match above the threshold, the far door opened. If not, the system asked questions. She had been standing in the room for 40 minutes. The far door had not opened. The identity verification system she had built, the one now examining her from every surface, was designed around a fundamental technical principle. Biometric identification works not by storing your fingerprint or your face in a database and comparing them to what it sees, but by encoding your biometric signature as a mathematical representation, a high-dimensional vector in a space where similar people are close and different people are far, and checking whether the new measurement lands close enough to the stored one. The system knew Salvii's gait, voice, retinal pattern, and the specific frequency of hesitation in her footsteps in unfamiliar spaces. It had stored these as a vector. It had measured the vector of the person standing in the room. The vectors matched. The problem was the questions. The system had a secondary verification layer she had added late in the development process, at the insistence of a project director who felt that biometric matching alone was insufficient for the sensitivity of the zone behind the far door. The secondary layer asked questions. Not questions about passwords or pins, which could be stolen, but questions about self-knowledge, about the things a person knows about themselves that are harder to counterfeit than a retinal pattern. The first question had been, what do you value most about the way you make decisions? She had answered. The system had found the answer insufficient. It had asked for a follow-up. The follow-up was, who are you when your professional identity is suspended? This was, she recognized, a question she had not thought through when she designed the question bank. The questions had been generated by a language model, reviewed by a psychologist, and approved by the project committee. She had read them all. She had not imagined answering them herself, which was the specific category of error that a builder makes when they forget that they will one day be on both sides of the thing they built. She tried to answer honestly. She described herself in terms of her history, her relationships, and her interests outside work. The system listened. She could feel it listening in the way of a system that weighed every word against a model it had built of what honest self-description sounded like. The system had been trained on thousands of identity verification sessions. It knew, statistically, the difference between a person who was describing themselves accurately and a person who was describing themselves as they wanted to be seen. The far door remained closed. The question it asked next was the one she had most dreaded, not because she had expected to face it here but because she had understood, when the language model generated it, that it was the right question and that right questions are never comfortable. If everything you know about yourself comes from how other people and systems have responded to you, what is left when those responses are suspended? In the room, there were no other people. There were no systems she could see, which meant no systems she could adjust her self-presentation to accommodate. The biometric data was already gathered. The question was not checking her identity against a database. The question was checking her identity against herself. She had built a system that could tell her who she was according to her measurements. She had not built a system that could answer the question her measurements could not resolve. The far door opened. She did not know what had changed. The system did not explain. Its decision architecture was, by design, opaque to the person being verified, because legible systems are more easily gamed. She stepped through the door into the secure zone, and the door closed behind her. She stood in the corridor beyond it, with the particular silence that follows a question left unanswered. She made a note to review the logs later. She suspected they would show her standing very still for a long time before the final measurement, and that the stillness was what the system had been waiting for, not an answer, but the honest admission that she did not have one. This was not something she had intended the system to recognize. She revised her estimate of what she had built.